Join with me in welcoming Preston Manning.
You know, we've been going across Western Canada during the harvest period. The harvest political joke that we've heard both in Saskatchewan and in the Peace River country was, how many politicians does it take to grease a combine? And the answer is 14 if you put them through very, very slowly.
His folksy manner puts the crowd at ease. His message makes them think.
And we say to make members of Parliament more trustworthy, we must change the political system itself to make members of Parliament more accountable to you.
I would like to say that I think the way you're planning to turn this country around is great, and you have my trust.
He's the son of Ernest C. Manning, Alberta's social credit premier, who balanced budgets but banned films and opposed our current healthcare system.
I would like to see a plan under which the government responsibility is limited to whatever assistance is needful to make the objective obtainable by taking care of those who need government help, but not those who are able to look after themselves.
His interest was in making, if you were going to have a comprehensive program, to make it financially self-sustainable. And that's now the problem. The conditions are much different now, but that's the problem that the next Parliament will have to wrestle with, all these legislatures are wrestling with.
Albertans loved Manning Sr. and kept him in power for 25 years.
I guess his main contribution to my development was to argue that there is such a thing as bottom-up populist politics, and that the West produces these movements.
Preston Manning first entered politics at the age of 23 when he ran as a candidate for the Social Credit Party in the 1965 federal election. At that time, he advocated the crossing of party lines for, quote, the sake of Canada. At the time, the 23-year-old said, the drift to socialism must be opposed in order to preserve a free democratic society. He lost. The Tory candidate got more than twice the votes. During the 70s and 80s, Manning served as president of his own development company in Slave Lake.
I was involved in community development in north central Alberta, which is a grassroots, bottom-up approach to economic development.
A controversy erupted when other directors of the company were involved in a conflict of interest. Manning downplayed the problem and never disciplined them.
There's a fire been started here. We got to spread the ashes and the flames while they're still hot all over Western Canada.
In 1987, Preston became leader of the newly formed Reform Party. The unpopularity of then Prime Minister Brian Mulroney had many Eastern Canadians taking Manning seriously. But the constitutional referendum helped propel him to a place of national prominence. He set himself apart from the other parties by urging a no vote. His side won, and even more people said yes to reform.
And it's the difference between a protest party, which is just against things but doesn't know what it's for, and a reform movement, which the literal meaning of reform is constructive change.
But controversy still surrounds the Reform Party on immigration. Reform wants to limit the number of new Canadians and feels those coming here should possess the appropriate, quote, human capital, a phrase which even confuses some party members. Here's what Manning says.
Don't tie entitlement to cultural grants to the ethnicity of the group. Non-racial immigration, don't make the country of origin a factor in immigration at all.
Well, I see his immigration policy as basically favoring white immigrants who speak English. Now, the way
Writer Murray Dobbin is highly critical of the Reform Party.
He says that immigrants should not be a burden on Canadian society. They should have the appropriate human capital. Well, that means that we shouldn't have to spend money on teaching them to speak English or teaching them to get used to a different culture.
Late in the campaign, the bandwagon hit a pothole. The Reform Party kicked out a candidate in Toronto for his racist views.
There are extremists out there. There are people that are anti-French or anti-Quebec or anti-immigrant. When they see a new party, often they take a run at it, see if they can get into it, particularly in your weaker ridings, influence. And so the other thing we have to do is where that occurs is to be very clear in knocking that out of the party.
But the incident hasn't stopped the momentum, and spirits remain high.
And you can say to politicians, look, you politician, you asked me to trust you. But to get trust, you got to give it. Like, are you prepared? That's a bad omen, I think, there. And one last question that you might ask. We'll put that up after.
Okay, thank you very much.
And so, as he rides a new wave of popularity, many pollsters and politicians predict Reform's final stop will be a prominent parking place on Parliament Hill.
Bye-bye.
Rudowski, ITV News at 10.